Hello butterflies. Today I really quickly want to talk about my honest opinion on silicones, specifically dimethicone, and talk about them in personal care products as a little bonus video. And I want to start out by saying that in the past I was really wrong. And it wasn't until I did a bit more research that I started learning about silicone and dimethicone and about how they can be used in both medicine and in cosmetics, but also talk about where I think they are a waste of money versus something that is good, and then kind of where some of the dangers are. So first off, dimethicone. You may have seen it on the back of your primers or your foundations. And in the past, I always thought that this broke me out. I would read that on blogs, I would see it online, and then I would see natural beauty stores have silicone-free foundations or products that were silicone-free, and they used coconut-based ingredients instead of silicone. And that kind of made me think that silicone was bad. And it was probably like 3 years ago that I had my beliefs challenged, and I actually started looking into the science. And especially, throughout the last 3 years, I have learned a lot more. I realized that I was misinformed in the past, and I want to talk about how my opinions and my usage have changed. And then I'm just going to be totally honest, what still scares me as someone who tries to look at the research from a non-biased perspective. Now, I do want to say that you know your skin. You live in it 24/7, and everyone's skin is different. If you are convinced that silicones or dimethicone breaks you out, then don't use it in your products. And then there is an environmental reason that we might not want to use it. But if you think it breaks you out, then don't use it. I honestly thought it broke me out, but I now realize that they were probably other ingredients in my foundations, or that I was just not using my skincare properly, or I was switching products too soon and I was blaming it on these silicones. So what is specifically dimethicone? It is a smoothing agent. It is vapor permeable, meaning that it is semi-occlusive and it's kind of an emollient. It still allows moisture to get through. And so when it goes on top of the skin, it doesn't completely seal everything out. If you read a lot of natural blogs, they say that silicone stops your skin from breathing and it clogs dirt and oil, but the truth is that it's semi-permeable, so it doesn't actually do that. When it comes to silicone, it does have medical uses as well. You may have seen it in breast implants. It's actually sometimes used in contact lenses. It's also used in wound healing and in burn victims. For instance, if somebody comes in with a gigantic burn or a deep gash in the arm to the emergency room, nurses and medical staff will probably bandage that up, make sure that the patient is stabilized, of course, but then over time they might actually use silicone or dimethicone to stop what's called transepidermal water loss. And this keeps moisture in the skin so that the skin can heal better. And if you have an accident like that, it'll still probably scar, but maybe it'll scar less. And transepidermal water loss, remember, trans means across. Epidermal refers to the epidermis, or the top layers of the skin, and water loss is losing water or moisture. So transepidermal water loss is this loss of moisture through the skin. And silicone can help prevent that, which is really awesome, especially in medical settings and in scar treatment. And in my recent scar update, I spoke about that I wonder if silicone derived or silicone included products had an impact in my scar healing, because I would apply primers with silicone every single day. I wonder if that helped my acne scars heal better or different. I'm not exactly sure, and that's something that I would probably have to test, but I do kind of look back and it does make me curious. Dimethicone is actually called polydimethyl siloxane, and that's because of the way that it's chemically structured. It has two methyl groups, CH4 because it's silicon, and then a siloxane group, which is silicon and carbon. So it's made up of silicon, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. And because of that, it actually can make different configurations, and it can be mixed with a lot of other products. Now, something that this is really what changed my mind, or opened my eyes. I was looking at prescription acne treatments, specifically Retin-A micro, like tretinoin cream, which can also be used for scars and wrinkles, but for acne, right? And then Differin, specifically Differin moisturizer. It's a moisturizer for acne. Both of these products contained dimethicone. And when you see that dimethicone, like glycerin, is an ingredient that can really help heal the skin, or not heal, can really help stop this water loss from happening in the skin, and that it's used in these acne products, it made me a lot less scared. I think there was a study in 2017 that looked at a whole bunch of acne products and what the moisturizing factor was. And it listed everything from glycerin, which I like, to dimethicone, which now I am no longer afraid of, to things like petroleum, which I'm not so cool with. They listed mineral oil. I still have to do some research on mineral oil because that still kind of makes me feel yucky. But it looked at all of these different ingredients that are used in acne products, and it showed that dimethicone and silicone were hypoallergenic, meaning they were safe for people with allergies, and they weren't reactive, and it didn't seem to cause breakouts. And from the studies that I have read, it doesn't seem that silicone actually does cause breakouts, or dimethicone. Which is very, very interesting, especially seeing as there's so much hype about it on the internet. And again, if you look at some of these foundations that are sold at Ulta or Sephora or Green Beauty Store, it says silicone free, and if you don't literally dig into the chemistry and into the mechanism of action of some of these things, you look at that and you think, oh, it doesn't contain XYZ, XYZ must be bad for me, right? And I am a little bit embarrassed to say that I think that's something that I did in the past. And in some of those videos, I kind of regret doing that. Now I've learned a little bit more, but I do think that silicone can be a little bit of a cop-out. And let me explain why. Even though silicone can create this kind of occlusive barrier and still let vapors permeate, and it can lock in moisturizer, I don't believe that it's an actual moisturizing factor. For instance, it does not infuse moisture into the skin, but it does protect. So again, if you have hyaluronic acid and you apply that as a serum and you put some silicone or some dimethicone on top of it, can really help that penetrate and work better. But silicone in itself is very smoothing, and when you wash it off, those smoothing and scar blurring benefits do go away. So it's also a very inexpensive ingredient. So if you're buying a really cheap product or moisturizer or like a makeup primer, fine. I think that's totally okay, and that's totally okay for me. But at least where I'm at in my life and my brain right now, which might change in the future, if I see like a $75 or a $110 moisturizer and like the first or second ingredient is dimethicone, it just kind of pisses me off. I feel like it's a cheap cop-out because yeah, it'll make your skin look amazing, but you're essentially applying a makeup primer. And the second that you wipe that off, all of that smoothing and that blurring is gonna go away. And for me, out of my leave-on products, such as moisturizers, masks, or serums, or even toners, I want impact. I want something that will hydrate my skin and keep it hydrated even when I take it off. I want something that will work on my scars or do something. So in combination, dimethicone can be really great, and I am no longer against it, especially in foundations. But for some of these really expensive skincare products, knowing how inexpensive dimethicone is, I'm like, dude, this is a cop-out. And then where I do get a little bit nervous is with siloxanes, specifically cyclomethicones. These really scare me, and it's because of what I have read. Now, when we talk about cyclomethicones, this is a group of different ingredients. There's D4, D5, D6, and D7, which are the most common. And the thing is that when you see siloxanes or cyclomethicones, you don't actually know which one. Cyclopentasiloxane is one of them that I'm concerned about, and cyclopentasiloxane and cyclohexasiloxane, which is D4 or D5 and D6. I'm a little bit scared of D4 as well, but let me explain that just real quick. There is an issue when it comes to the US government protecting us. The US government has outlawed like 11 chemicals or banned 11 ingredients, but the European Union has banned like 1,300, Canada has banned like 600, and I don't always trust a lot of the resources that have government funding or that are governmentally supported. And specifically, people got a little bit concerned about these cyclomethicone products, and they started doing research. And there is a very prestigious journal, which in 2011, I believe, published a study looking at some cyclomethicone products. It was the Journal of Toxicology, and it was in 2011, I believe. And they basically did a gigantic review, and it spoke about the chemical configuration of these different ingredients, how they are listed in cosmetics, and they tested it on animals, which is horrible. They looked at all of this data, but they showed that at the very end of the paper, after they went through literally pages of this stuff, it said, in the amount used in cosmetics products, cyclomethicones or siloxanes are probably not going to reach toxicity levels. And the end of the study basically said like, oh, it's okay. And when you look at the authors, I think it was by Johnson, it said that there was no conflict of interest. Yet, when you look at the industry funding, I don't want to mess this up because I don't have the study in front of me, but it was funded by, I believe, the Cosmetics Act, or it was funded by an organization that was then funded by the cosmetic and personal care industries. And obviously, the cosmetic and personal care industries have an interest in selling products. So if this study that says this ingredient is not harmful was literally paid for in part by these people who want you to buy these products and think that they're safe, that just makes me feel a little bit uneasy. Now that alone, that kind of conflict of interest, they didn't list a conflict of interest, but that potential conflict of interest is not enough to say these are dangerous, don't listen to the study, write off everything. But what the European Union and what Canada is doing does scare me. Specifically, it's the ECHA, the European Chemical Academy, or the European Chemical Association, looked at cyclomethicones and said that by 2020, they want them banned. I believe that it's D4 and D5. It might be D5 and D6. Somebody look into that for me. But seeing as Europe, by 1 year from now, sees them as potentially toxic and doesn't want them in products, specifically products that you apply and then wash off your face, makes me concerned. Then Environmental Canada listed them as potentially, if not probably, harmful to humans. Specifically, I think it was reproductive toxicity in humans, and then in rats, I think there was some sort of liver weight or liver cancer. And then on top of that, Environmental Canada found that it did bioaccumulate in aquatic systems. And it's like, I'm sorry, I don't want my aquatic systems to be ruined. And so cyclomethicone is a little bit different because we don't know if it's D4, D5, D6, or D7, or any of the other configurations. It's not listed on the back of your products. It might say siloxanes versus dimethicone, and like I'm okay with dimethicone and silicone, but when I see siloxane, I don't know which one that is. And seeing as there is international concern, it kind of makes me concerned. Now, how do I feel about using silicone at the end of the day? Again, I'm gonna keep an eye on these siloxanes, see what's going on with them. When it does come to dimethicone, even though it's supposed to be safe for acne, even though it may have helped me with my scars unknowingly, even though I think it is essential in medicine and in the emergency room, it is an environmental hazard because it does not break down in the environment. And that's sad to me, seeing that I might be putting something on my face that is non-biodegradable, that when I wash off in the sink or in the shower, goes into the sink and down the drain and into the rivers and into the oceans and could potentially kill or hurt aquatic life. That really bothers me. So when I see dimethicone, I'm like, okay, that's great, but why not just use something like glycerin, which is natural and as far as I'm concerned, does not have these non-biodegradable issues. And so when that really bothers me. And as someone who wants to do good, I don't want to be cluttering up the world with this chemical, or not a chemical. Well, I don't want to be cluttering up the world with what I'm washing off my face. And I'm sure that there are other things that I'm using that I have no idea are even more toxic to the environment, but that's how I feel about it. These are my unscripted, unedited opinions, and if you want to see more of my unpopular ones, you can watch here, and there's some skin science right here. I apologize, Skin Science and Minimal Makeup Monday have been late. I hope you don't hate me. I really love you guys, okay? Bye. See you in the next video, butterflies.